Anton, thank you ever so much for joining me on the International Classroom podcast today. Whereabouts in the world do we find you?
Oh, so again, Alex, thank you. Thank you for inviting me here, and hopefully we get a nice conversation like you have been doing with your previous guests on your show. What it comes, I'm now in quite sunny Finland, city of Porvoo, so enjoying the last days of the summertime here.
Wonderful. And one of the things I'm doing this year is I'm allowing the guests to introduce themselves. So how would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers?
Oh, so passionate sport guy who actually wanted to be a professional but have found itself in a classroom because of his mom. So everybody listen to your mom, because she is my, let's say in that way, inspirational one person, because she worked as a special education teacher, and when I was 5 years old, I also said I want to be a teacher. Of course, during that path, I have been looking for another professions, but still it has been always in my mind, and now I'm actually in the center of the education and enjoying every day.
Amazing. Just out of curiosity then, what sport was it that you wanted to follow through with?
Oh, I played basketball, national team level, but then I broke my ACL twice, so that was quite the end of that career, but it's still okay. Good memories.
Good memories. Because obviously when we're all sat down and we're doing this, obviously you can't tell how tall people are, how built people are. So just out of curiosity, how tall are you?
Actually, I'm not that tall. I'm just only 190 centimeters, so it's 6'2". But in the basketball court, I'm short one.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm like 184, and I think I'm relatively tall. So if you're 190, yeah, okay, you're tall. You're still tall. Like first normal people out there, anyway. So yeah, you find yourself then in this education part, and that's obviously what we want to talk about today. Is some of the amazing work that you've done, but also to shine a light on the Finnish education system, which you're a part of, because it's one of those that is revered around the world, isn't it? In terms of, from our side, from the UK system, so you've got Singapore, Japan, all these, but a lot of people, will reference and come back to the Finnish system. So I'm just curious, obviously, in terms of your experience, like, what do you think makes Finnish education such a good system?
Of course, first of all, I need to say that there's a lot of myths going on about Finnish system. And I also noticed then when I was working in Doha for 2 years, for example, no homeworks, no tests or anything like that. So, but in overall, what is the core Finnish system? Of course, it sounds, in my opinion, even sometimes quite corny, but it's student-centered. And of course, it doesn't mean that students can do whatever they want, or teacher comes to your classroom and say that today we have some kind of project. Just take your laptops, pads, and then work out what you need to do. Then I will go around and ask some simple questions. But inside of the system is actually, it's more about that we really talk about student centricity, and I would say that primary, pre-education, and then primary school, they are like a foundation of whole Finnish education, because the higher we go in education ladders, I would say that they get more similar around the world. But it's about this first steps, and like we all know, in every process and development, especially development when we're talking about human beings and children, young ones, the first steps are the most important. And when you give them chance to feel that they can actually affect their own learning, even it's quite hard, step by step, you can see in the future that they are more, they are active ones. They start to think maybe a little bit differently. They don't need to follow every time the book, or they can, be more critical when it comes to social media. So that's the foundation, I would say. The first steps of, career, each one's career in a education system.
No, thank you for that. And you mentioned something in there again, I just want to probably unpack a little bit of, just in case people haven't come across it. You used the word student-centered. What do you, when you say that, what do you mean by student-centered?
Let's say it's in a very simple way, which is, of course, it's not that simple. Taking ownership of your own learning. And another part is how to learn, not always the outcome, even we know that, of course, you need some basic skills. Let's go in a subject-wise, for example, maths or literature. Of course, you need the basic skill, reading, writing, calculating. But after that, it's about actually to think how you learn. And I always ask this question to my colleagues or whenever I'm, going to some kind of workshop. Do we really, as adults, as education professionals, do we know how we learn? And sometimes that, even I can say that not always. So that's exploring, process that we can call also life learning process.
Yeah, it got me thinking then about that when you asked that question. It's like, how do I learn? I was like, it varies, doesn't it? And it's one of those, it's a really great reflective question. Thank you for kind of unpacking that for us. But obviously one of the things you also want to talk about is the roles you play within this, and we can elaborate a little bit on how it connects with that. But you are doing something that I'm really interested in, which is to do with interdisciplinary. And I think that post sort of COVID as well, and it's always been there, but now I think it's more at the forefront of people in terms of how do I bring subjects, how do I bring skills into it? And you kind of had this really sort of interesting project. I've got it down as the Time Travel Agency, and I'm hoping I've got that right. Could you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, first of all, I need to say that you did a very good, research, because first I was like, what kind of project? But yes, it was all about that you mentioned. And in the simplest form, I just collected different kind of, subjects together. I started working in a special school. So I'm honest with you and with everyone else. It was my survival mode, because in my classroom, there were, just only 10 students, but all of them were from grade 7 to 9. And that means that everyone followed a little bit different curriculum. And they had their own, needs that you need to be, content interacted to education. So what's the only way to, bring the whole class together, not just to give them specific tasks and they will just sit down on their own, place, or how to make that we feel that we are a team and we actually collaborate with each other and we learn from each other. So that was at the beginning, it was just an only survival mode to keep group together. And then I started to realize, actually this is working, because these students are getting more engaging in this process. They actually really start to talk to each other and share some kind of information that I would never have, quality to explain to them. And the second step was, of course, that our national core curriculum in 2016 also changed and was introduced to schools. And the main point there is actually make subjects to, collaborate and talk with each other. So that was also my, key message, because it's, what's leading my professionality and my teaching is, of course, curriculum.
Yeah. And what have been the outcomes then? Obviously, it's something you started with and something you carried through. Have you seen any sort of unique outcomes or increased outcomes for what you'd be looking for?
I would say that pretty much every time when we have this kind of projects going on. But if I specifically remember this time travel one project, there was one student who unfortunately wasn't able to write. But then we introduced, ICT technology. And then I saw that one student who was always like, let's call it autism spectrum. And he was like traditional one that he wanted to be alone. He wanted, specific structures. And suddenly those two, combined together. And there's another guy who knew how to write. He started to teach these ICT skills to another student who wasn't just only on the process of writing. And she started to explain to him how actually to communicate, what kind of questions are good to ask. So there was a fruitful end of this, because both got their strengths up, and at the same time they developed these weaknesses or spots of development.
Yeah, what you've mentioned there seems very much, I would say, is skill-based. So those skills in terms of communication, collaboration, what we want, even maybe critical thinking. Do you find then, obviously, you're mixing these things together in terms of the curriculum. Do you find that it helps with the ability to, let's say, recall or retrieve information? Does it help students making sense of the information in the world around them?
Yeah, definitely, because this kind of approach gives, limitless opportunities to learn. Because like we all know, the most learning is actually happening outside the classrooms, because students are spending in different kind of environments, and then they bring their knowledge to the classrooms where teacher is creating environment where they are able to share that experiences, connect them to their own world, and also by that understand better subject-wise competencies.
Amazing. So let's fast forward to where you are today, because obviously that was one of the very first projects you started with. How does your curriculum look now with all that experience, and obviously with the national curriculum change? What does this look like for you in the day-to-day? How is your classroom teaching look like today?
I would say it's a foundation, because now when I've put quite a lot of time for developing this, listening to another experts who know even more about this one. So now I can't even think in another way. Of course, I'm in this position that I have my own class. Even I'm in a middle school, because I'm working with the school dropouts, and that means that they were not able to get their final exams done in 3 years of middle school. So they are now continuing with me. And of course, they have some specific subjects, here and there. So again, that's my mode to bring the team together, to show them that they actually can learn and can share the information. And it's all about mixing those, subject wisely together. But then, of course, I understand people who are working in a more, subject based education system, like in Finland. We have subject teachers. And sometimes it's very hard to just combine, just because you have limited time, or you just, you need to follow your own curriculum. But at the same time, the question is always that how you can bring that experience that you have in your class. So you have great resources, and that's our students. So how you can bring their knowledge on the table and then combine it with your own specific subject. And by this one, you can also then expand the whole learning process.
And do you think technology has had a part to play in this? Has it helped make this more accessible and more easy?
Yeah, wisely used, of course, because ICT, it's already here. It will be here, so we can't escape from it. So that's the fact. But then another thing is how we're going to use it, how we can actually use it and teach students those skills, the valuable skills, no matter what the subject is. But if you go actually specifically how technology has improved, and from my point of view, it's about materials distribution. You can do differentiation much more easier and distribute between different groups. Let's say, for example, ChatGPT, the easiest example that I am using. You have a text, then when you know that you need to differentiate that text on different levels, you give, the advices of what ChatGPT should do, and then you will have, from one text, 5 different ones. So again, it's much more easier nowadays. You don't need to, find every material and take too much time from it, for differentiation. And then I would say that technology, it opens that possibility to our students to take that ownership, because now you don't need to wait every time teacher to come and check your scores, for example, because it can give it you straight away by any kind of app, and then you can realize, okay, that's my points that I know. That's something that I need to practice more. Okay, teachers is explaining to someone else. I can move forward. So I don't need to waste my time. So it's give possibility to get that deep learning action, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you raise a really good point there. And that's one of the conversations taking place, I think globally, is using it for the sake of using it versus using it for improved learning and the advancement of. And that's it's kind of a grey area, I think, for a lot of people at the moment. If you were offering any advice, obviously, from your perspective and even from a Finnish perspective as well, it's like, what would you recommend for educators to go, look, these are some of the things, your key considerations for how you can use technology that allows, problem thinking skills or problem solving and critical thinking, rather than just, hey, this is Canva, we're going to use Canva for the sake of using Canva.
I need to say also in Finland, we are now at this point when we start to think that how we actually using the technology. We are in such a good position as a country that pretty much in every school, every student now has his own or her own device presented by the school. So the next step, okay, we have this machinery. So we have those, pads and laptops in front of us. Now the next thing is to how we use them wisely. So that's a $1 million question, Alex. How are we gonna do it? But in my opinion, as a teacher, I need to ask myself what those devices will bring and how they can enhance my learning, students' learning, and our collaborative development. And sometimes you can be quite honest with you. They're not bringing that much. I can say from my experience now for this 1 month with school dropouts, because but my group, let's call them like my group. I'm hating to say my group, but the group with whom I'm working now, they have some, I would say addiction to social media, ICT especially. And of course, there are two separate things with school, ICT, working technology, and social media. But now we have been, practicing 1 month without using any kind of devices. Because now we are ready maybe in the next 2 weeks to open our laptops and actually concentrate on the task and all those skills that you also have been asking, that what to do and how to improve them. But yeah, the first question is always that how they will benefit the whole process, or will they? The next thing is, okay, they will benefit. They will, for example, in the world of special education especially, I would say they can be used as memory expand. They expand the memory capacity, so it can be limitless nowadays. So yeah, okay, they will improve our learning outcome. So then the next thing is, what we're actually going to learn. Is it, again, more subject-wise, or is it more about skills-wise? So do we want to learn self-regulation? So that's going to be the first part with my group this year. So now in the next 2 weeks, we're going to open laptop and we're going to practice self-regulation. Are I able to, open the Word document, or will I go to, I don't know, TikTok or somewhere else? You know what I'm saying? So that's the, thing. But step by step, you don't need to take too much. I did it and I did it, wrong. I can say it like 10 years ago, I started to think that those are natives, they know how to use, and suddenly we started to go step by step how to use Google search. Because I can't find this kind of question, because the project was that you need to create a tourism company. But they were not able to find, basic, let's go from our point of view, basic information from where get information about flight tickets. Okay, guys, let's stop. Let's figure out what we need to write down, how we're gonna, copy paste everything. So it's, from my opinion, it's by small steps forward. If you are a little bit hesitant or you don't know how to do, and of course, use the source that you have in a classroom, because someone still know something more than you. And then this collaboration and collaborative culture will also improve.
Yeah, and I've seen that in my classroom. Like we said off air, like we're talking about our weekends, and I've got books I'm marking. It's not something I necessarily will say to teachers in terms of work-life balance. It's just one of those things. It is what it is. And I set some sort of, like, say, tasks where students here, like using their devices, research, and you just kind of, and these are 13, 14-year-olds, year 8s, and you have this expectation that, it's the internet, they know what they're doing. And the reality is, and I've known this for a while actually, they don't. They really do not have good research skills. And it's the equivalent of when I was at university, or even in doing that, it's like how to use the library effectively. And again, he's going back to that. I would struggle in terms of, right, what's the book? How do I find the information? And so it's the same skill, but obviously 20 years on, in essence, in terms of how to be a good researcher, how to be resourceful and make use of that. And I think you're right in the point that you make in actually students still need to develop those skills. And I think the emphasis there is on a skill, because skills are learned abilities. You have to give students time to practice them, but what we're talking about here is guided practice. And I love that you've mentioned this self-regulation. I think it's such a thing that's over-missed. Like, we see it all the time with students, and I see it even with my own children. It's like this ability, and I, even as an adult, sometimes struggle with it, in that I'll get distracted and that ability to stay focused on task. But I'm also curious, and going back to what you've said, how have the first 4 weeks been for your students without using any technology? How's that gone?
Let's say, for my surprise, and because I got some kind of thoughts before it, easily. I needed to say, a couple of the first time that, come on, guys, we are the team. But I changed, a little bit the way how I said to them, because they have been coming from the different locations, and their mindset, unfortunately, at this point is more about that, I don't care about the school. School is a crap, all the feedback, most of the feedback I have received, it was negative. It had been negative. Of course, there's a point why they have been, getting that negative feedback also. So it's not just a one way, road. So, but then I started to explain that, okay, we are a team. Do you want or not? We are still a team. You are forced to be here. So one way is let's make it more fun. Let's start to feel that we can actually learn and respect each other, because they also, teenagers, they're about respect. If you want to respect me, if you don't respect me, I don't respect you. Then, okay, I'm going to respect you. If everyone are going to respect each other, let's make specific rules. And, I got very surprised because still, like 1 week ago, I asked them that, okay, now I don't know the answer on this question, and I would ask you to Google it. And one guy said to me that, after 10 minutes, I asked him, why are you not Googling it? Oh, come on, Anton. I don't want to use the phone. I was like, all right. So, some kind of improvement. And then they also have been talking to me that, during the school time, because they have decreased their using of mobile phones, it's also have affected positively after the school. So I see also these kind of benefits. I'm not just, focusing, even, of course, I'm focusing on what we are doing during our school times, but because we all know that what is happening outside the school is also affecting students and their mindsets. And especially when we go on this side where we need more support, when we are talking about school dropouts, some kind of, another social problems that they are having, of course, they're going to bring them inside the classroom. And it's going to take time from actually this actual learning that we maybe want to improve and go on.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that, because obviously you've got what I would call pastoral issues or pastoral challenges. And obviously that's what they're bringing, in terms of their life away from school into the classroom. And then on the other hand, you've got then the other challenge of what subjects do these students want? What other subjects in terms of interdisciplinary or projects? How do I make it relevant? How do I connect with them on, numerous different things? Like if you've got a student in there that needs to do maths, and if it was me, I'd be like, I hate maths. I don't want to do maths. Like, this is not for me. How do you overcome that challenge? Because it is one, obviously, the engagement of the students. If we take away the devices now and you've got them there, they're hooked in. Like, what are you doing? How do you overcome that challenge and decide what's the best pathway for them?
Oh, let's say a lot of mistakes during that road and during that process, but still a lot of good positive vibes and insights. I would always ask everyone that, do you want to learn? And no matter are you teenager or comprehensive school student or adult, most of the time the answer is yes. And if someone is saying no, I will also asking that, but do you like something to do outside the school? Yeah, I like to play some game. So you want to learn, you want to be better than that. So the foundation of everything is that everyone wants to learn. I'm still 100% that everyone wants to learn. So that's the key point. And now, if you want to learn, and okay, you might say that you hate maths, but you are interested in I don't know. Some of my students are interested in motorcycles, velocity, everything. So you need numbers. You want to buy some repair stuff to your motorcycle. So you need to understand how money works. So social studies. You need to understand, ICT skills to go and to website and decide which is the best for you. So again, you need some kind of measurements. So it can easily be bring to your life. Of course, every session can't be. I'm not saying that, we as teachers need to put some kind of firework every time. But if we give even some hints to our students that we care about them, every lesson is not about, let's go specifically to subject-wise or even a project-wise approach. We have this time to ask, hi, Alex, how are you? How you have been doing? Is your motorcycle still going on? What about the repairs? Okay, then you get some kind of insightful information, and then you start to use them. And when someone is still saying to you, I don't care about the maths, for example. Okay, mister, but what about this? Then you start to put motorcycle parts, they are costing that one, velocity. So you need to know something. And if you want to go further, for example, to vocational studies or, high school or whatever, occupation you want to get in the future, you need some skills. So you can actually easily bring to them and show to them that, hey, you actually need to learn something before you can achieve your goals.
Yeah. And it's got me thinking now, because obviously for you teach, is it middle school, isn't it? So what ages are middle school students with you?
They are at this point, so they are now 15 to 18. And that's why we are calling even the middle school students, because in Finland, you must, learn on the municipality rules at least until 18. So you have time to get this, middle school done by 18. But I also have been working with the students that are, from grade 3. So pretty much from preschool as a school assistant, as a preschool to high school, then in, for example, in Doha that I have been working. But now specifically in the middle schools, with the middle school students.
Because I was just curious when we're talking about this, is that when they get to 18, do they have to do any sort of state-regulated exams, or is there any form of assessment they have to take?
In Finland, we don't have any kind of standardized tests. It's more about that if you complete the whole curriculum by the 9th grade, so pretty much all the subjects that every curriculum in the world also has, then teachers are there. We are having a lot of power and responsibility in that sense. So because we evaluate, we have a couple of standardized tests, but they are more they are more beneficial. So if you get a better score that your current average is, then there will be additional one. But if you get lower, it's not going to affect you. And that's what I would say, that we need to in some way to think in Finland much more deeper and take from another curriculums, because we have this dilemma here going on when it comes to assessment, because it's very dependent on teacher. Of course we have a curriculum, but it's still very dependent on teacher, and we don't have that clear structure which has been shown in a high school, especially, that some students are coming from different parts of the country, are having totally different understanding and knowledge, but they are having the same, for example, numerical assessment grade.
Okay, yeah. So it's I think it's a global issue, really. That isn't it, in terms of how do we assess, and that if a student has studied biology, for us it's 40. Obviously, you would know 14 to 16, and they come to us A level. The expectation that they're all at the same level it's just no. They can be completely different. And obviously, for yourself, you're working sort of with these special education students as well, aren't you? Or students who haven't managed to pass within that period of time, like. Is the time frame, or is the education system geared to support those students, or or is it a case of they have to continue the same pathway down, or is there something different in place?
I mean, so they all have started, in a middle school, with a general curriculum needs and everything. But during that 3 years path, so I'm talking about from 7th to 9th grade, during that path, they have been having some kind of struggles, not attending the school, not getting good grades enough. So at the end of ninth grade, of course, during that time in Finland, we are having a 3-tier support system, which is divided in 3 different aspects. So general support is for everyone. So it's every teacher, no matter are you SEN teacher or special classroom teacher, it doesn't matter. You need to provide. So it's basic support that's happening in every classroom every day. Then if that's not enough, we move to second level, which is intensified support level. And that means now we start to think, do you need some kind of extra curriculum work, extra support in your, for example, with your tasks? The task load might be a little bit lower. So you might get more time during the exam or tests, for example, this kind of aspects. And then SEN teachers are also there involved. So you might have one-on-one sessions during the school week. And if this is not enough, then we move to special support tier, and then we start to talk about special classes. So the group is going to be smaller, 10 students, pretty much. That's the maximum, that the capacity of this kind of class. Then you might have totally individualized curriculum path. So even you are 9th grader, you might do the level of 6th grade, but that's going to be noticed in the qualification papers.
Okay. And so from that sense, it's so obviously you've been into Doha and in some international schools, and if we were talking about a UK curriculum or other ones, we talk about core subjects. So I'm in Dubai, core subjects here for us is science, English, math, and then because of where we are in the world, we have Arabic and Islamic. Are there any core subjects that students therefore, are required to pass or need to pass, or is it very much because you're doing interdisciplinary, is it a case of no, we all have equal weighting and therefore, or is it something that you actually have to specifically do for them? You need to pass all subjects if we're going to go to subject matter, from maths to arts to PE. So you need to actually pass. If you want to get this, 9-year path done, you need to do all of them. But of course, inside the subjects, some subjects we can call core subjects. Even we don't use that word in Finland. But for example, maths. That means you need to study that 4 hours per week. But then physical education is 1.5. So it divided for the whole school year. So that I need to explain that first. Yeah, so it divided the whole school year, and that means, for example, maths 4 hours per week, but then PE is 1.5 hours per week, and that means that depends on the schools. Do you have 4-period system, 5-period system? So you might have, you need to have maths pretty much in every period, but then PE might be in just only 1 or 2. But still, okay. You need to pass all of them. You need to attend and pass all of them. Yeah. Okay. And obviously you've worked in a different education system. You're obviously looking at curriculum and your interest is in there, and then you're back in Finland. How do you now perceive the Finnish education system in comparison to other global systems that are available? Obviously you mentioned the switch in 2016, and we're talking about project-based learning, and you've taken on the interdisciplinary component. But how do you feel it compares now with this project based, and is it the right thing to be doing? Is it something that, because we're seeing other countries now take it on, so for example I know Mexico are going down a very similar route, having spoke with having someone on the podcast who's done that as well. It's like, does that have strengths, and do you think it's worthwhile other countries looking at that, or do you feel that it also has sort of limitations to it as well?
Of course, because I'm the also talk and speaker for this phenomenon based. In Finland we call it more about phenomenon based, and the project based is like one tool of it. I would say that let's again ask a question. And it's not my question; it's Jeff Bezos, so the Amazon guy. So he maybe knows something about successful stories. And he has also asked this one that told this one that he has been asked that what's going to happen, what's going to change in next 2 years, but no one is asking what's going to stay in the next 10 years. And he prefers that second one to be more important, because on that you can, what's going to stay for next 10 years, you can actually build a successful story that he has been doing. So I think that we need to also ask this one in our education systems, no matter where you are, what's going to stay in the next 10 years. And I would say that people connection, it doesn't matter. With what everything else, and of course ICT, but in the core of it, it's going to be still people connection. Curriculums might change, specific, subject matter, importances might also change the next 10 years. But connecting with the people is going to be the most important thing, because we all know in every field, you need to have those skills to connect with each other, to work together, to be innovative, because the world is changing on a huge pace. So I would say that, of course, it's good that everyone are starting to think about it, and because the more curriculums work on this issue, how to make it is now sufficient and progressive enough, the more opportunities we'll have in the future.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was curious then, and I've got a child knocking at my door as well. You pass that. As your sister gone?
Yeah, Eva has Mama's.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Right.
I was just checking if you're still in memory.
I'm doing my interview. He's all the way in Finland. This is my daughter Olivia. She won't be able to hear.
Hello,
but she's,
Olivia. Nice to meet you.
Nice. All right, darling. See you in a bit. Close the door. Love you too. Yeah, she interrupts. Wow, she's always curious to come in and see what's going on. So I do apologise. Well, I'll edit that part out.
No problem. But there you go. Everyone wants to learn.
Everyone wants to learn. It's cute. So if you were just thinking about that in terms of if you were selling something like, say, a sales pitch of the education system from Finland, what part of it would you be like, look, globally, guys, you need to be doing this. I'm going to sell you this part of our curriculum because I really believe in it. And you mentioned phenomenon, and I've heard this term before, like this phenomenon-based learning. So I'm curious about that. But if you were going, look, I think you should have this, I think you should have this, what would you be advocating for? What would you be selling to the rest of the world?
I would say that there's two tasks of school. So it's ensure that learning is target orientated. So we need to know what we are doing and why we are doing, because we also need to explain to our students. The second thing is that the skill of taking responsibility and ownership of your own learning. That's are the two parts. And I think that doesn't matter, again, what kind of curriculum we will have in the future. Is it Finnish or not? But if those two are, actively put in work, not just on paper, then we will have this, active citizens that pretty much every country in the world wants. And, globally, we want to have these innovations based on, changes that we are having, like I mentioned before. So that will be, the core of every school, or at least the school that I will, create and sell to everyone else. But what you have been saying, that a lot of countries are jumping in the wagon, and I have seen, for example, Cambridge, and they high school those modules And I would say that they are much far than Finnish high schools. Sorry for Finns and for us, but someone are taking advantages because they have also seen that it can't be that free, free educational format that sometimes in Finland you can also see, and people are still saying that this is a phenomenon-based learning, which is not. Like we started our conversation, it's not about that. Welcome to the classroom. Today is that task, and just go ahead and do whatever, pretty much whatever you want, or what do you want to learn today. It's not about that. You still need to have a structure. You still need to, lead that one. Even we are talking about student-centered approach. It doesn't mean that teachers disappear from that. And the easy answer for this one is that learning, like we all know, it's in our brains happening, this learning process needs time, it needs repetition, and it needs some kind of support. So who will give that support if it's not teacher in a classroom?
Yeah. And you mentioned then, I came across obviously the phenomenon base with a guy I interviewed, a guy called John, I can't say Kelly, who is basically, he's set up his own school in Mexico, and he has taken sort of this phenomenon-based learning principle into project-based learning. So he's doing all of this over there. Phenomenal, set up this whole Ikigai. It's a phenomenal school. But in case people, I'm just curious now, people haven't heard this term, could you just describe for us what phenomenon-based learning actually is?
At the best, phenomenon-based learning is a problem-solving approach. So you have some kind of question and problem that is, that is a real life problem. And then you start to think with your class, okay, what's the reason? What have led to it? And adding that subject-wise information to it. So I would say it's more about the mindset, and it's like air. Yeah, I would describe it as an air that is, in a classroom. That's curiosity that answers questions that are not answered, but they're still in our minds and we are still thinking about them. And suddenly when we learn that subject, wise information, we connect them to real life problem, and suddenly we are having different kind of answers, and they lead us to another questions. So it's keep going. So it's like, functional one. And that's why I see that project-based, learning is a tool for it. Of course, and here's a school differences, and research differences. So I'm not saying that, they're overlapping each other. And I'm saying that someone is better than another one, but because I'm from Finland, and in 2016, like I said, that was my survival mode, national core curriculum, and I was in Helsinki, and Helsinki promoted this phenomenon-based, and they also promoted phenomenon-based learning and the whole city as a classroom. And what we started to do, of course, in Finland, we are in this position that we can actually, take a bus and go whatever we want. In Doha, we couldn't do that, for example. So we have this little bit advantages that what I can see. So we started to explore the city. Okay, we are talking about the history. Why we're not going to go to that place and actually, feel the air, feel the atmosphere? By that, we are using, public transportation. And during those processes and times, there was a lot of, learning happening during that time, when someone will say that, you're just traveling around the city, which actually one colleague said to me. But in 3 years, those students, they were amazing. And suddenly, from where did they learn that? I'm not saying that they learned from me, because I would never have that information. But, during those times that we actually traveled around, and I also learned a lot from them, and they learned from me. And suddenly when we came back to classroom, we had more questions, and this phenomenon idea just growth and growth up.
It's like you said earlier in terms of learning that takes place outside of the classroom. And I think it's important to recognize that. And unfortunately, even for where I am in the world, going outside of the classroom is not always possible. And that's why, again, my episode that's out at the moment, I've got a guy called Andrew Wright who's in Australia, who's in these amazing VR worlds and augmented reality, the edu metaverse, and being able to work within those for, so now it's great that the opportunities are still there. And obviously what you've said, it can still generate the type of curiosity, maybe in a different way, but being able to generate that type of curiosity and engage. And I think that's one of the key things I've taken from our conversation today is about how we engage students, and the ways that we hook them into learning. Not just, let's say, through, this is my subject and we only do this subject. It's real world problems, real world scenarios. What are the components of other subjects can we bring into this, or things that you're interested in that we can bring into this, like sports or motorbikes or, even photography, art. There's lots of ways in which we can hook students in. And now with AI so easily at our fingertips, technology so easily at our fingertips, it should and does make that so much more easier to have this idea of, I use the word personalized, but, something that is offering an interest for every student. So, real good takeaways from our conversation. I really, really appreciate that. If you could offer then a takeaway for teachers worldwide about the benefits of interdisciplinary and project-based learning, what would it be?
Again, sorry that I'm asking these questions, but that's going to put them to think. Do you want that your students, will learn or practice these skills? Problem solving, decision making, being flexible, connecting different skills? If you answered yes, there we go. Of course, you asked previously about the pitfalls of this phenomenon-based or project-based, and I never answered them. You need to still have a structure because it's very easy. And again, I raise my hand and I say that I've been doing this too many times. We have been going off-road too many times. So keep the structure. Remember still, what are your goals? So at the beginning of every session, what is our target? Like I said, what every school needs to have, target-orientated, mindset. So what we are really doing, and then it's your job, or let's say our job as the teachers, to get back on track, get that chance. And then what the benefits when those skills are practiced, it's got to be much more easier to work in different places, like we all know. But as a real time development, what we might even see straight away, because like we all know in teaching and learning, it takes time, but still it's increase of sense of identity. So then I will start to know actually who I am, how I work, what kind of emotions are bringing to me when I'm talking about, for example, maths and anxiety is one, very, big problem nowadays. So, but you start to understand from where they are coming, what I need to do, maybe what kind of tools I'm kind of use to those, negative feelings, if you're going this way. Then I would say that autonomy, even it's illusional. I'm using illusional autonomy and how it works. I'm going to give you, Alex, 3 questions, and you need to, you can choose 2 of those. But because I have been doing my homework, all 3 questions are related to subject-wise, a competence that I want you to know or practice, and then based on the skills that we want to learn. And for you, it's like, okay, he's giving me a chance to decide what I want. So what the best? I get the autonomy to decide what I learn, even it's illusional one. So let's don't tell that to the students, but it's usually working quite very well. And what this autonomy makes, it increases your motivation. I would say I can see that it really increases, even it's such a small, such a small practical tools. 3 questions, decide 1 or 2, but that all of those are beneficial for him. And then the next thing is why students are coming to school. Of course, in different societies, it's a little bit different, but based on Finnish researchers, friends. And I would say that no matter where you are in Doha, of course, it's in Finland, it's also mandatory to come. But in Doha, for example, we're brought on straight away there by the drivers and everything. But what is the case there? Friends. So collaboration, communication, And when you get this insightful idea for them that you have a autonomy when what comes to learning, it makes also easier to commit to work and participate, which again leads to self-regulation. I'm talking now, Alex, with you, or I'm just checking some kind of YouTube videos, which I'm not doing because I'm focused on this one. But you know what I'm saying? Whenever we have this kind of Teams meeting or whatever they are, even a classroom or like live settings. So yeah, I'm wandering, my mind's wandering somewhere else, or I'm here. And that's when it comes to self-regulation. But when autonomy, motivation, and commitment are there, it's much more easier to practice that self-regulation because you are responsible of your own learning and responsible a little bit for everyone else because you are team. We are team.
Yeah, the amount of times, I said to you already twice about marking, the amount of times I've put in this in terms of time management, you have missed a learning opportunity in students not getting the task done because, like you've said, while they're off, like just talking or on other things. And it's like, oh, but that then someone will go, but that reflects on you as the educator because surely your job is to keep them on task. And it's like, I've got 20 kids in there, 20 to 22 kids in the classroom. And if I move around, which I do, and I'm having conversations, I'm engaging, I'm asking questions about this, and you're trying to spend that time with the students, it's a 30-second conversation. If you get around everyone and go, okay, well, that's 15 minutes worth of conversation taking place. It's then, how can I ensure that little Jimmy here is doing what he's meant to be doing so that he doesn't miss this learning opportunity? It's like, and that's actually part of students' self-regulation and intrinsic motivation to learn and want to learn. And you can see the discrepancies across, the whole year groups, different year groups. And when you mark your students' books and you go through and you have that, you can see students who have these notes that are phenomenal, everything's there. And then you've got poles apart. It's like, was I in the same classroom? And did I teach these kids the same things? And it very much does boil down to a combination of the tasks I set and how I create engaging activities that's relevant to those students, but also how those students self-regulate them and take responsibility for their own learning. And so, yeah, in terms of what you're saying, and that's the challenge. If educators out there are listening and go, okay, geez, okay, well, how do I do that? And it's like, well, I don't have a magic wand in terms of it. And when I finished, I'm probably going to go, right, I'm going to start Googling it and start, using AI tools to find out methods and strategies and ways to develop self-regulatory skills. But if you were to offer sort of 3 takeaways for people listening and watching in terms of starting points for developing that skill set in students, what would it be?
Yeah, I just need to comment to your thoughts, which are those are thoughts that I'm also having, but that's the fact. If there's even 10 students and 20, when we're talking about 20 more, you are not enough. What I'm saying, that one teacher is not enough, and that's the fact. So we need to use that resource that we are having, and there's those students. But what we need, so now it comes to takeaways. You need time. So you need to be brave to actually take time and to learn your group, connect with your group. You need time to, make it possible to students connect to each other, not just assume that, okay, they are social ones. There's some clicks together. No, use that time. Even I know that there's periods and time limits, but still, I have also seen great teachers who were brave enough to use, for example, even 2 weeks of their 8-week course to making this collaboration work, to promote this, culture of collaborative learning. And suddenly, in 6 weeks, they achieved much more that, class behind them that they were using from day one, This is the specifics that we need. So to take time, be brave, and I would say the second one is structure. You need still structure. It doesn't matter. Is it a special education? Is it general one? You need to have structure. So you need to use that basics, visual clues. What we want to achieve today? What is the topic? What kind of skills? And I like to talk about skills more than subject-wise outcomes. Of course, you need those. I'm not saying that they're not important. We all need that. But what skills we are learning, and what put your students to think actually actively. what are those skills? And I'm really, practicing those skills. And again, in 20 students classroom, there will be someone who is not going to do something, but you have been promoting that environment. And at some point, I believe this positive social pressure will, be much better than, teacher who is saying, oh, Alex, you are not doing your work. Oh, Alex, you need to focus on that. Because the most important, more powerful is someone who, the peer who will say, Alex, come on. Enough is enough. Just get here. And you will do it much better than it's me that is saying to you. And the third one is, so the first one is time. The second one is, what was, sorry.
You said be brave and you said structure.
Yeah, so time, structure. And the third one is, remember, there's a source and this comes, ICT comes here. If it's possible to use, a group assessment, I mean, self-assessment and group assessment. You can start slowly by anonymous, in a Padlet, for example. You can ask that, can you give me some kind of grade for this lesson or for this week as a teacher, and then start to, move towards that. If everyone will give their own assessment to each other, and the level 3 is going to be, are we ready as a group to give assessment to ourselves as a group? So yeah, assessment, self-assessment and assessment in general, reflection, time, and then be brave. Yeah, because that also means a lot. Are you willing to change your mindset and actually use that time when it's limited? In my case, I have 1 year or even 2 years. It's easy to say, I understand. Someone will say, come on, you're in totally different field. But at the same time, I have been as a subject teacher, and 8 weeks is the limit. So, but use 2 weeks, let's say in average 2 weeks, and then in six weeks, you will find that deep learning process, which is amazing.
Amazing. A great one to finish on. I've got one question left for you. This is our fun question. So if you could create a new interdisciplinary project, no limitations, what would it look like and what subjects would you combine?
Oh, I need to say that at this point, I'm not that innovative because I know that this has happened already. It was 5 years ago in Singapore, in my opinion. But so the idea is this kind of that we are not going to have any kind of subjects. Even I know we need to have them, but we are not going to have any kind of subjects. But there's going to be 3 different, projects that you can choose. For example, it's building your company, environment, future of technology, for example. And then you decide one of them, and we're going to actually go to different countries and different cultures to explore how those questions maybe modifies or change in different cultural aspects. So I know it's not quite a green idea, but we're going to travel around the world, actually go there in those places and see that what are the biggest differences between countries, between cultures, religions, for example, and what we can learn and take from them. So we're going to actually immerse ourselves to that culture, not through technology, even it's a great way and tool to do it. And I would say it's gonna maths, it's going to be maths, language, whatever language, history, social studies, PE. So let's combine all of them, because when you are there, you're actually moving around, you are exploring ICT skills, social interactions with people, making, notes, putting some kind of presentations going on. So I would say that it's possible to put every subject in that, and outcome will be that if we talk about the kids and especially teenagers, they will see that they are not that much different, no matter where you are. Of course, really, some aspects are a little bit, modifying you, but at the end of the day, we are human beings who are working pretty much in the same way. We need each other. We are curious. We are willing to learn when the environment is right.
Fantastic. I love that. And finishing that when the environment is right. That for me is a real key takeaway and a great note to end on. So Anton, thank you so much for your time today and giving us that really, really insightful, look at, one is the Finnish education system and the things that are going there, but also about the work you're doing with interdisciplinary and project-based. It's a real opportunity to learn and bring new things into different international classrooms, which is the whole purpose of this. So really, really appreciate your time and insight today. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Alex. I can't say anything else that it was great to have a conversation with you. I have been following you now a little bit in a LinkedIn, and you have great ideas and what is the best way to, have this conversation with another insightful and forward-going mind. Thank you for this one.